Described in the ancient holy books of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, in Arabian folklore as well as the earliest stories of Ethiopia, the Queen of Sheba is a magical figure that appears as if from nowhere. But what is the truth behind this remarkable queen and the kingdom she ruled?
She may be the memory of a genuine historical queen. She might be a composite memory of several different female figures who ruled the lands of the sands in ancient times. Scholars can't quite pin her down, and this is probably something that adds to her legendary status.
The search to discover more about this mythical queen and her long-vanished kingdom begins in the desert of southern Yemen, notorious for its banditry. The expedition's patron is 76-year-old Marilyn Phillips Hodgson, whose archaeological team has come to the ruined city of Marib, once the capital of a mighty trading empire. The Arabs called it Saba. The Jews called it Sheba. Close by the city, hidden beneath thousands of tons of desert sand, lie the remains of Marib's greatest shrine, the Mahram Bilqis, the Temple of Sheba. Marilyn's reason for coming here dates back half a century. In 1952, her brother Wendell led a team of American archaeologists to Yemen and took along a camera crew to film the expedition. A larger-than-life adventurer who helped inspire the character of Indiana Jones, Wendell set to work excavating the site, employing 160 Bedouin laborers to help uncover an immense structure undisturbed for more than 1,000 years. Slowly, a grand courtyard emerged, and with it, evidence of a forgotten empire, the Sabaeans. Inscriptions suggested that the temple and the images within it were dedicated to a fertility god, Al-Makka. Since traditional Arabic folklore often associated Sheba with an ancient fertility cult, the findings reinforce the team's belief that evidence for her really might be found here. Then, cruel fate intervened. The hostility of local warlords reached a crescendo. Following death threats, Phillips made the agonizing decision to pull himself and his team out of the Yemen. Wendell Phillips would never return to Yemen. Struck down by a series of strokes, he was nursed through the last few years of his life by his sister Marilyn. In the decades that followed, Yemen closed itself to the outside world. The desert reclaimed the temple.
We never talked about me doing it. He was coming out. You know, he was going to do it. So when he got a second heart attack and suddenly, you know, it was over, there wasn't even any thought about it. You know, it had to be.
Like her brother before her, Marilyn is convinced that evidence for the Queen of Sheba will be discovered here in the Mahram Bilqis. Modern Yemen remains a dangerous place. For centuries, it was closed to outsiders. After a quarter of a century of pleading with the Yemeni authorities, she's been allowed to return to the ancient temple.
I believe that a Queen of Sheba must have existed. Why would these stories permeate so many people's lives, especially in the Arabian Peninsula? They believe so strongly in this. And why would it have lasted all these centuries?
Amid heavy security, excavation has begun at the ancient site. The team hoped to find evidence that the Queen of Sheba worshipped here. They have just a month. After that, the authorities can no longer guarantee their safety.
Oh, I never saw that, huh? Wow.
Leading Maryland's archaeological team is Professor Bill Glansman from the University of Calgary, Canada. An expert on the archaeology of Yemen, Bill has elected to excavate previously untouched parts of the site in the hope that they may shed new light on the Sabaeans and their most famous queen.
The sanctuary here, Mahram Bلقيس, is important because we have the ancient Sabaean kingdom centered here at Marib. This is a great historical center in that sense. It's also the largest pre-Islamic sanctuary that we've yet discovered in the Arabian Peninsula. There were always very powerful queens. Some of them would rise up to fame and glory, such as some of the Egyptian queens like Hatshepsut and Cleopatra, for example. But this Queen of Sheba is a little bit different. Without her name, we can't identify her actually as a historical figure. We need to find some link, if there is one, to find the historical reality of that queen and the stories that surround her.
The site covers 60,000 square meters, more than the size of 8 football fields, and every inch must be cleared by hand. Progress is slow, constantly hampered by dust devils that appear and disappear without warning. In Arabic folklore, these desert whirlwinds, sometimes called jinn or genie, have an intimate connection with the legendary Queen of Sheba. For in old Bedouin tales, Sheba was born of such a spirit. According to a fable set in Sheba's ancient capital of Marib, then a grand and prosperous city, there lived among the many merchants a beautiful spirit called Umayya. Umayya fell madly in love with an important advisor to the king, and from their illicit affair, a daughter was born. Half human, half genie. They named the child Bilqis and gave her to the spirits of the desert to raise. As she grew up, Bilqis learned from passing caravans that an evil king had come to rule Marib. One night she slipped into the king's chamber and plunged a dagger through his heart, saving the people of Sheba and replacing him as their ruler. Two weeks into the dig, and Marilyn's hopes are raised of finding a link between the site and the legend of the Queen of Sheba. A telltale inscription emerges from the sand.
Oh my God. Huh? Woo. This is a really big structure, isn't it? Solid.
It mentions a king here, a name of a king, and we have here also.
The inscriptions support the idea that the temple was a royal building.
We have Damar Ali, king of Saba.
The inscriptions are like billboards. They proclaimed royal edicts and offered devotions to the temple's god.
It's a kind of decree.
Wendell never saw this, or never saw the inside.
But if this really was a royal building, it will surely contain additional royal inscriptions, perhaps even royal graves. Wendell Phillips had been unable to prove the sanctuary was old enough to be associated with the Queen of Sheba. But modern dating techniques have completely overturned traditional assumptions about the site's age.
We do know that the sanctuary goes back at least as early as the time of King Solomon, around 950 to 900 BC, and actually much earlier than that, for over 500, 600 years earlier, would suggest that if there is any connection at all to be found with a single historic figure, a single Queen of Sheba, it will be found here.
Could this temple house the last resting place of the real Queen of Sheba,